After watching this video, you'll be able to describe how major companies are embracing DevOps and recognize that DevOps requires a cultural change. DevOps takes a completely different mindset, so you must first unlearn what you have learned. To really embrace the culture of DevOps, you must unlearn your current culture. It's easier said than done. For companies that are startups who are, not steeped in enterprise culture, it's easier. Right? New startups begin with a new culture. But the big enterprise businesses must unlearn what they have learned and change their ways. This is extremely difficult to do. But consider this. What if you could fail fast and roll back quickly? You could limit your blast radius of a change. You could put something out in production, and if it goes wrong, it doesn't bring the whole system down by limiting the blast radius of that change. What if you could test in market instead of second guessing and analyzing? Companies do this all the time. There'll be A/B testing, and you'll say to your friend, "Hey, did you see that widget on the website? You clicked on it, and your friend is looking at like, what are you talking about? Your friend didn't see it. They didn't see any widget. Your friend doesn't see it because the site was A/B testing. You were in the A group, they were in the B group. They didn't get to see that new widget. Companies take a subset of their customers and show them something new and see how they react, instead of trying it out on everyone. This is testing in market, and it can be very, very powerful. What if you had an application design that allowed you to change individual components to be replaced? You wouldn't have big bang releases. This is how apps like Spotify are designed. Spotify is not just one big monolithic app. It's a bunch of little microservices. So they have a recommendation engine, and it's a microservice, and it shows up in the app. And if they want to roll out a new recommendation algorithm, that team can roll the new recommendation out without affecting any other part of the app. You might make totally wacky recommendations, but it's not bringing the whole Spotify service down. You just get some recommendations that seem a little ridiculous, but you're listening to your music. What do you care? These are things that enable you to move fast in market. In 2009, at the Velocity Conference, opened a lot of people's eyes. John Allspot and Paul Hammond gave their now famous presentation at the Velocity 2009 conference entitled 10 plus deploys per day, Dev and Ops cooperating at Flickr. Allspot was at Flickr at the time, and he talked about how they were doing 10 deploys per day, and people's heads exploded. 10 deploys per day, right? They were happy if they could just get a deploy out every 6 months. But they weren't deploying all of Flickr 10 times a day. People didn't realize this at first. They had a different application design. They were deploying little pieces. And this opened a lot of people's eyes to the possibility of what could be if Dev and Ops worked together to move things out, instead of Ops being the gate for Dev. In that talk, they said that in the last week, there were 67 deploys of 496 changes by 18 people at Flickr, and that was back in December 2008. In January 2011, Etsy talked about deploying to production 517 times that month. What they actually said is that in January 2011, a month that they had over 1 billion views, their code was committed by 76 unique individuals and deployed to production a total of 517 times. I did a little back of the napkin calculation, estimated they're deploying like every 25 minutes. Right? People looking at this and saying, how are they doing it? Chad Dickerson was the chief technology officer at Etsy at the time. He said that Etsy's deployment environment requires a lot of trust, transparency, communication, and discipline across the teams. He and his teams work together for a common goal, not working against each other in silos. You might think, these are mythical companies, right? These are the sparkly unicorns. You could never do this in a big enterprise. No way, no how. Enterprises cannot change and move that fast. They just cannot do it. Won't happen. Then in 2016, at the DevOps Enterprise Summit, which 1,300 attendees, Gene Kim from IT Revolution, author of the Phoenix Project, began outlining where the industry stands and what's driving DevOps adoption in the enterprise. You had major companies like Ticketmaster, Nordstrom, Target, USA Today, ING, major retail companies, insurance companies, banks, standing up and singing the praises of DevOps. This is when other enterprises started to notice this DevOps thing. It's not just for startups. It actually works in big enterprises. Ticketmaster talked about 98% reduction in mean time to recovery. Traditional IT is measured in mean time to failure, but DevOps is all about mean time to recovery. Stuff is going to fail. How quickly can you recover is the question. Nordstrom had achieved 20% shorter lead times. Target's full stack deploy went from 3 months to minutes. Obviously, they did a lot of automation. Sometimes that 3 months is not all work, though. Sometimes the 3 months is having to go before a change review board. And they only meet the first Tuesday of every month, and today is Wednesday after that Tuesday. So I have to wait another whole month to get something reviewed. This is how big corporations work. If you want to move faster, you have to break down those barriers and to push changes faster. USAA releases went from 28 days to 7. That's pretty good, from a month down to a week. And ING has 500 application teams doing DevOps, and CSG went from 200 incidents per release down to 18. That's amazing. These are major companies that are singing the praise of DevOps at the DevOps Enterprise Summit back in 2016. People were starting to take notice. This is not just the unicorns anymore. So, how are they doing this? What's their secret? Is it some magic tool, and where can I buy it? No. They have embraced the DevOps culture. It's not a tool that they bought. It's not some procedure that they follow. They actually change the culture of their company, something very, very hard to do, but necessary to gain the advantages that DevOps has to offer. Until and unless you change the culture of your company, you will fail at attempting DevOps. Because DevOps is not about tools. It's about trust, transparency, communication, coordination, and discipline. You can't buy DevOps in a box. In this video, you learned the impact of John Allspaugh's 10+ deploys per day DevOps at Flickr in 2009, and that DevOps is a cultural change that requires trust, transparency, and discipline across teams.